Lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Roll call. Roll call will reflect that all board members and cabinet are present. Item 6.1, La Quinta High School Student Board Member Oath of Office administered by Superintendent Bailey.
One of the highlights of my evening, I'd like to introduce Kylie Borgen over to my left, a La Quinta High School student. Kylie formerly attended Earhart Elementary School, Desert Ridge Academy, La Quinta Middle School before becoming enrolled at La Quinta High School as a Blackhawk. She actively participates in volleyball, basketball, and track. She has served in ASB in grades 7 through 12, as ASB president in grade 8, and as class president in her freshman, sophomore, and junior years in high school. Kylie has volunteered at Reagan Elementary School and for Desert Sands Summer School programs. Thank you for that. An interesting fact about Kylie: she runs her own small business selling crystals and jewelry. Fabulous. Do you have any family you would like to introduce? I recognize a few people out there in the audience.
I have my parents, Angela and Dan Borgen, sitting second row. I'd also like to thank Samantha Hirsch and Mr. Magnera for coming as well from La Quinta High School, so thank you.
It's fabulous. It's great that you have an audience because now you get to be the center of attention and joining me down in front of the dais to be sworn in officially. You ready?
Yes.
You can bring a cheat sheet if you need it.
Welcome to the board. And moving on to item 7, approval of minutes, and we have a few to approve. Item 7.1, is there a motion to approve the minutes of the special board meeting of February 28, 2022?
So moved, Linda Porras.
Is there a second?
Second, Wendy Jonathan.
It has been moved and seconded to approve the minutes of the special board meeting of February 28, 2022. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, calls for the question. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstention? Motion carries 5-0. Item 7.2, minutes of the special meeting of March 1st, 2022. Is there a motion to approve the minutes of the special board meeting of March 1st, 2022?
So moved, Linda Porras.
Is there a second? It has been moved and seconded to approve the minutes of the special board meeting of March 1st, 2022. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, calls for the question. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstention? Motion carries 5-0. Item 7.3, minutes of the regular meeting of March 1st, 2022. Is there a motion to approve the minutes of the regular board meeting of March 1st, 2022?
So moved, Wendy Jonathan.
Is there a second?
Second, Tricia Pierce.
It has been moved and seconded to approve the minutes of the regular board meeting of March 1st, 2022. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, calls for the question. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries 5-0. Item 8, board meeting agenda. Superintendent Bailey, is there any addenda to the agenda?
No change.
Thank you. Item 9. Item 9.1, is there a motion to approve the agenda of the regular board meeting of March 15, 2022? Is there a second?
Second, Tricia Pierce.
It has been moved and seconded to approve the agenda of the regular board meeting of March 15, 2022. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, calls for the question. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstention? Motion carries 5-0. Moving on to item 10, community staff student recognition. Superintendent Bailey.
Yes, I'd like to call up our Public Information Officer, Ms. Mary Perry. Thank you.
Thank you. Before I read out the recognitions for this evening, I would probably be remiss if I didn't note that last night was the annual Academic World Quest competition. And once again, our own Palm Desert High School swept the competition, and the team will be going to Washington, D.C. So I'll bring it up at the next meeting, but it just happened. I had to share it. So congratulations, Palm Desert. GPG Music is an organization that works with schools to provide scores at no cost, so music that isn't copyrighted, that's available to use. And they work with band directors throughout the country. So I want to say congratulations to our own Guy Lake, who's Director of Instrumental Music at Palm Desert High School since 2005, because he was named the GPG, as you can see, Band Director of the Month for March 2022. And the owner of the company, Steve Martin, not that Steve Martin, said, "I love working with educators who are all in," and Guy is very high on that list. He also noted that, I think many of you know, Guy is one of the world's leading creator of handmade conductor batons. His batons are in high demand worldwide. So unfortunately, I don't see Guy here in the audience. So Dennis, if you could take back the congratulations for Guy, that would be appreciated. So you all may remember a few board meetings ago that Riverside County Office of Education has a first ever teen poet laureate, and the winner was our own Katie Jin, again, Palm Desert High School. And she's going to be doing poetry readings at the Palm Desert and La Quinta Public Libraries in April. So the flyers here with the dates, the flyers also on our website if you would like further information. So I had a chance to meet Katie. She was interviewed, or she did a commercial, if you will, for Riverside County on reading. And I couldn't believe that the young lady is a sophomore. She's just amazing. So in my hand, I have this lovely plaque, also on the screen. And it was received at the district office to recognize our commitment to exceptional stakeholder engagement from a company called Gobo. And Gobo is an infographics company that works with us to provide really clear information to our community about the district and our schools. And in presenting the award, the principal of Gobo, Randall Putz, said, "Your efforts to connect with stakeholders through meetings, surveys, and use of actionable and accountable tools, such as the LCAP infographic, demonstrate your exemplary commitment to engagement, collaboration, and the success of your students." So accepting the award is our coordinator of local control and accountability, plan, strategy, and performance, Kristen Wood. Say something? You can if you want. Okay. The mic's yours. Oh,
I love that.
I know.
I'm honored to accept this award or this recognition on behalf of everyone at Desert Sands, because it's not just about the LCAP. It's the families and students, staff, teachers, cabinets and boards, everybody, the directors, everyone in Desert Sands, and our connection with our educational partners. So thank you.
On Saturday, February 19th, Indio, La Quinta, and Palm Desert High Schools participated in the 2022 Riverside County Mock Trial Competition. And as you may remember, our 3 teams are funded by the Walter Clark Legal Group. And while we didn't win, our teams came away with some great individual recognitions. So as I say the name of the student, they're going to wave, and if they're not here, they won't wave. It works that way. So congratulations to Emily Tucker from Palm Desert High School. She was a bronze medal winner as outstanding clerk. Tara Bakshi Bezful, also of Palm Desert High School, was recognized with a bronze medal as outstanding prosecution pretrial motion attorney. Silver medal went to Jose Sepulveda Vel of Indio. I have to wave really high. For his silver medal as an outstanding witness. And other outstanding witnesses won bronze medals, including Tallulah Rector of Palm Desert High, Charlotte Trudeau of Palm Desert, Marlene Castillo Sanchez of Indio. And although La Quinta had no individual winners this time, I want you to know that they lost their game, they call them games, by only 5 points. The score was 470 to 475, and it was the closest game of the season. So as advisor Nathaniel White noted, this is a building year, so congratulations to him, to Palm Desert High School advisor Chuck Mazzei, who I know is here somewhere, there he is, and Indio High School advisor Martha Sung. And congratulations also go to Indio High School's team for being named one of the Elite 8. And that is where at 8 schools that were at the top of the competition at every mock trial event, so they pick the 8 that make it past the first 4 rounds of competition. And the Indio team ranked 4th out of the 8 teams, and I understand the scores were actually very, very tight. So just to introduce you to the Elite 8, they are Victoria Sung, Jessica Rodriguez and Mia Puga, Jose Sepulveda Velarde, Jessica Ramirez, Wyatt Stuckey, Marlene Castillo, Mia Bella Cancino, and again, Jessica Rodriguez, Ariana Osuna, I'm trying to find different names, Angela Abril, Adeline Espinosa, Destiny Cassis, Jacqueline Zamora, let's see, who else am I forgetting? Stephen Lopez Zapita, and Wyatt again. If I mispronounced any of your names, I'm so sorry. Did I miss anybody? Did I neglect to call a name? Because we're so proud of all of you. So could maybe one more round of applause for these incredible students. Thank you. So this month, there were 45 nominations for the incredibly talented program. That was in the month of February. And as you know, 2 names are drawn to receive a harvest box. And the winners this month was Samuel Vincent, who is a cloud support technician, and he was nominated by a coworker for the values of innovation, equity, and service. And the coworker said, Mr. Vincent puts customer service and supporting staff and students at the top of his list daily. He's a leader and very knowledgeable about the department. I appreciate his commitment to supporting staff and students. And I have to tell you, whenever Sam walks by my office and I'm having a little computer problem, I just go, Sam, Sam. And he comes right on in and takes care of me. So yay to Sam. The next one to win the box is William Ramos. And he is with Maintenance, Operations, and Transportation, and he was nominated by coworker Carlos Montiel. And he was nominated for teamwork. And Carlos said, regardless of the task at hand, William always comes with a positive attitude. His attention to detail and respectful interaction is always welcome in our kitchen. So congratulations to both of them. And finally, I want to tell you about the biggest IT award of all. So if you haven't heard, any of us, we have been shouting from the rooftops with a huge congratulations to Dan Capello for being named Dan has been named Riverside County Office of Education's Classified Administrator of the Year. So those of you who don't know, Dan is the Director of Nutrition Services, which has been a monumental task for the past 2 years. So Dan received a surprise visit on Friday from RCOE Superintendent Dr. Edwin Gomez, along with a media entourage. So we're going to show you a news clip that ran.
Daniel Capello, Director of Nutritional Services in Desert Sands Unified School District, was honored for his work helping hand out millions of meals to students throughout the pandemic.
Generally, we serve millions of meals, but it's inside in air conditioning with refrigeration, and moving it out in front of the schools really added a whole new dimension of difficulty. But we definitely pulled it off. It's amazing. I'd like to thank everybody at Desert Sands and all of you. It is probably the highlight of my career, so I'm very excited.
So I know that you'll agree with me that Dan and his team went way beyond the extra mile over the last couple of years, and they made certain that every single one of our children received nutritious, tasty, and often very much needed meals. So please join me in a standing ovation for Dan and his entire team, not only for this prestigious award, but everything they've done for our students. Thank you very much for allowing me to share these great news.
Thank you, Mrs. Perry.
Thank you, and congratulations to everybody. We're moving on to item 11, introduction of new or recently promoted employees. None? Okay. Item 12, information items. Okay. 12.1, La Quinta High School's Globetrotters Club Educational First Tour to Costa Rica, April 16th to 25th. Wow, nice. Costa Rica. It's like, wow. All right.
Right.
I think we went to, well, anyways, okay. Item 12.2, Palm Desert Charter Middle School's varsity color guard participation in the Winter Guard International Championships in Dayton, Ohio. There you go, Dayton and Costa Rica. Item 12.3, Shadow Hills High School Choir participation in the Forum Music Festival in Fullerton, California on April 8th, 2022. Those are some amazing opportunities. Item 13, staff conference item, Superintendent Bailey.
I think this one belongs to Education Services. Dr. Vollmer.
Does. All right, I got a little popping going on. We are going to have the presentation this evening, just to call the board's attention to what's going to come before you. You'll have the presentation this evening, and on the next board agenda, you will have an action item to approve the plan. So this evening, the plan will be presented by Kristen Wood, our LCAP coordinator, and Dr. Marcus Wood, Director of Secondary Education.
Good evening. So Educational Services are going to do a presentation on the A through G Completion Improvement Grant Plan. Under Ed Code 41590, California has provided funding to support the A through G completion rates with activities such as providing professional development opportunities, tutoring programs, expanding access to coursework, and allowing students the opportunities to retake A through G courses they received a D or F during the spring of 2020 or the 2021 school year. The A through G Completion Improvement Grant Plan, the blue color document that you have in front of you, has 5 prompts for the districts to address how they will utilize the funding to support 1, increasing or improving services for foster youth, low-income students, and English learners to improve A through G eligibility. 2, accessing A through G courses approved by the University of California. 3, providing opportunities to retake A through G courses. 4, connecting to the local control and accountability plan. And 5, providing information on the planned expenditures. And now Dr. Marcus Wood, our Senior Director of Secondary Curriculum Instruction and Assessment, will present the context, connections, and drivers of the A through G plan.
All right, thank you, Mrs. Wood, and good evening, everybody. So tonight, to get us started, I want to show the path or the direct alignment with our vision, mission, and goals. And the way I like to look at it is think of as a roadmap. And so our vision is the destination. That's where we're headed. We want to see all of our students, college and career and life ready. How we get there, those paths are the mission, and that's along the way. And then how we behave in that car are those 9 values that are attached to that. As you look at the A through G path to college and career and life success, that path is in direct alignment with meeting that vision and those goals. It officially, upon your approval in April, will begin next month. And while the grant ends June 2026, you can see that the path continues because we'll continue on that path to meet our vision. So it's good to remind ourselves what is A through G. And there's 2 parts to it. The first one is by technical definition, and that is it's the minimum requirements for admissions into the UC and CSUs. And those minimum requirements are taking those courses that you see listed there, those 7 subject areas, and then also being successful in those 7 subject areas and earning a C and above. But in broader context, A through G is much more than that. Whether students going to the military, community college, a trade school, to the workforce, we want all students to complete a broad course of study, and we want them to be successful. We want them to show proficiency in all those subjects because the reality of it is that diploma and that experience will provide them what they need to be successful for those next steps. So in the development of this plan, we had the opportunity to engage our educational partners and solicit feedback. And so we put out a thought exchange to both middle school and high school, went to principals, assistant principals, counselors, had some teacher feedback. We also engaged with students, our special education under student support services, our own state and federal, and then of course with the county was pivotal in that as well. And we're able to really draw in some great feedback that leads us to the development of this plan. So the plan is broken into what we refer to as these 6 drivers, and you can think of these as levers or actionable services in terms of being able to address A through G and support kids who are not there reach that level. Now this was created by Riverside County Office of Education, specifically the College and Career Readiness Unit, and those specific drivers, 5 of them are specific to high school, and then the one that says high school readiness really is specific to middle school. And so as I present what the plan is, it's through the lens of each of these drivers. As I described the driver, the second part of that is the secondary driver. So think of that as the actions and services. So the first driver is CalPADS data. So that stands for our California Longitudinal Pupil Academic Data System. And that's where all of the data from each of the districts across the state feed into this, and then they disperse it into California Dashboard and DataQuest and so forth. And the reality of it is, as you all hear the term, clean data in, clean data out. Dirty data in, dirty data out. And I will say that we have made tremendous progress in this in the last decade. And as it relates to our folks in technology, honestly, I don't know if there's any improvement specifically with them because they really do run a well-oiled machine. Where we see that we can have improvement, honestly, is just even in my own office, curriculum instruction, but working with sites and really establishing better roles and responsibilities in the continuation of that evaluation. I mentioned a data calendar up there as well. And part of that is always making sure that what is in Synergy is also in our UC portal, and that language is accurate, and that we're always catching students that may not be A through G who actually may be because of validation and so forth. So we definitely see areas of improvement, and we're going to focus on that through this driver. The second driver is access to rigor. And so when we talk about that access to rigor is access to all A through G courses, specifically with the lens of our student groups. And there's definitely, you'll see in this plan, there is an overarching focus on our English learners and students with disabilities. And those really are the two groups that we know that we can do a lot better with. And so access to rigor applies to those students, obviously, having access to A through G, but also access to rigor is access to honors courses and AP and IB and college courses. So part of that secondary driver, action and service, is to put in some common practices for all of our counselors. We have some, but we want to shore that up and make that even better. And part of that comes from course placement, A through G messaging. We truly want it to be almost an act of Congress for a student or a family to not engage in, want to be A through G. Master schedule evaluation, really with the lens of our student groups, and then A through G audits. Some of our high schools currently have continued doing that. We want that to be consistent. And then, of course, again, with that level of, or that lens of looking at English learners and students with disabilities and in terms of their transcripts. The next driver, number 3, is success in courses, and that is students earning C's and above. And so through our COE, they have what's called the Measuring Student Learning Project. And this is an opportunity through this project, for school sites to engage in a root cause analysis really on the evaluation of measurement and to look for potentially inconsistencies or areas of improvement, and from that, providing effective training on effective grading practices. We have a lot of teachers that do really, really well with this, and we want to provide that opportunity for everyone. In addition to for success, we're adding a bilingual paraeducator at each of our high schools, and their target audience will be English learners and students with disabilities in A through G courses. And those folks will they will know A through G inside and out and receive a lot of training as it relates to that so that they can help reinforce and support that, both with families and with the student, and provide those students that extra support day in and day out. And then the last part as it relates to success is intervention support. So companion courses, support in core classes. All right, the next driver is high school readiness, and this is specifically for our middle schools. So just like I'd mentioned in the prior slide, which relates to high school, we want to do the measuring student learning for middle schools as well. Also, we want to engage in what's referred to as the high school readiness for college career criteria. And really what that is an opportunity for a student upon completion of middle school to earn a gold, a silver, a bronze, based on the criteria that we outline, which would refer to courses taken, grades, GPA, attendance, behaviors, all the things that are indicators for a student to be successful going into high school. And so almost think of it as a plan in middle school with that target of being ready for high school. In addition, and this was definitely came across in our feedback from counselors, but they want time for onboarding meetings with incoming ninth graders. We've had some of the high schools do that. They've seen great success with it, but it comes down to the time to do it. And so part of that plan is adding additional days in the calendar in June specifically to be able to provide support for that, also scheduling and evaluation of the end of the year A through G for our seniors. The next driver, number 5, is credit recovery. So these would be students that need to repeat courses. We feel really strongly about our summer school options and that we really, they're robust enough that we do meet the demand. So the focus as it relates to the grant is expansion of credit recovery and course validation opportunities during the school year. And so within the plan, the 4 traditional high schools will each receive 317s for the first 2 years. It'll drop to 217s the following 2 years. In addition to that, we want to expand Edgenuity. Edgenuity primarily has been used at our alternative sites. We did expand it this year for students with disabilities at our traditional schools. We use Apex a lot, and we'll continue to use Apex, but Edgenuity is very robust and really provides more of an engaging experience for kids, and so we want to start utilizing that at our traditional sites, and this can afford us that opportunity. The next one is increasing training and data evaluation for course placement. And we just know that in terms of course placement, we've got to do a better job of evaluating, is it working? So take math, for example. In fact, there's a portion in your Friday letter this week that I put in there from our counselor meeting from last Friday. And we did an activity with counselors and got a lot of good feedback from it. And we broke them up into groups and gave them some really challenging transcripts and said, okay, which class should this student go in next as it relates to math? And we talked about multiple measures, and we talked about that lens and focus and in terms of A through G and CASP and graduation. And anyway, great activity. It's something that we need to do more of, and so we want to continue to do that. And then the last driver is intervention. And so one of the greatest needs that we have is our designated ELD courses. We know that they need revamped at the high school level. We've done that at the middle school level a couple years ago with some great success, but we know we need to do it at the high school, and actually I was just recently at the CIS conference and sat in a session from a district up north and some of the work that they're doing, and around an A through G designated ELD course as it's tied to ERWC. So we're going to investigate that and see if that might be an opportunity for us. But we definitely want those courses to be A through G. It would be a G elective so that each course a student takes, if it can be A through G, is, and then make sure that it's the best course possible for kids. Also expansion of support courses, again, those companion classes, and then as I mentioned, because it falls in this category too, that bilingual paraeducator support for English learners and students with disabilities. So if we do all these drivers, what's our, and that's our plan, what's our goal? So this directly aligns to our LCAP. Our metric in the LCAP is that we will increase A through G completion eligibility 3% per year. So the data you see up there, what's on the left and then on the bar chart, those are exactly the same, just two different ways to look at it. If you look back to 2012, you'll see that when we kind of started this journey, we were at 31.5% of an A through G rate. We've made a lot of progress. At 2020, we hit 58.2%. That's a little bit elevated. If you recall, that was right when COVID hit and districts across the state did the PC. Correction in 2021, but still, honestly, overall making that progress. So the green is really what our 3% increases, landing at 2026 at 73%, which I think is very doable. And that is our plan and our presentation. Questions?
Ms. Borgen, do you have any questions?
Jacob Overs. So based on the fact that you would have to increase by 3% every year, are you coming back and presenting every year just to give us a brief update on this?
Yeah, it's part of the annual review, I was just told by our LCAP coordinator. So yes, you will get that data.
Okay, that's my questions. Thank you.
So the money part of it is the 2.2 million to carry out these 5 or 6 areas?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, over the next 4 years.
And I like the bilingual paraeducator part, and I like also onboarding the 9th graders and giving them that boost and finding time before the end of the school year to do that for all incoming 9th graders.
Yeah.
That was a great report. Thank you.
Thank you.
Boris?
As usual, awesome report. I just wanted to ask, I think it's great that you're having an ongoing evaluation of everything and, to keep everything accountable and up to what you want, what you're expecting. And I think it's great expectation that what you're saying can be achievable. The one question I have is, and I don't know if you said this, is in the thought exchange, do you have parent involvement in that?
With the thought exchange, we did not.
Okay.
No, it was just the educational partners within our district and the county.
Yeah, okay. I just was curious about that. Are you going to say something, Kristen? No.
There, through the LCAP process, there is opportunity for them to address A through G through the LCAP, but not directly with the A through G plan.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay.
But there is A through G in the LCAP.
All right. Thank you. Thank you. Jonathan?
Yes, thank you so much, Dr. Woods, right? No, not Dr.
I think they're related. No.
I know they are, but only one is. You probably deserve to be a Dr. Wood, though. I'm just going to say it anyway. You did a great job. I have a couple of questions. Is it possible to get a report from the middle schools regarding the credit recovery? I'd like to see how many students needed or participated in the credit recovery from each one of the middle schools. That way we have an idea how many students we're looking at that might be at risk. So if you could get us that data. And also, because it's all about data, and I love your report, but now I want the data. Those people students participating in Edgenuity, I'd like to see that. I know that we probably have on the dashboard A through G, I believe that's one of the columns, correct? If you can make sure that we get, maybe you can break it down so we can just see that versus each one of the schools. So how are they performing in A through G? Because I think that that's important that we see that as school board members. Love the gold, silver, and bronze idea. I think that anytime you give incentivize students, I think that, to participate and improve, I think that that's wonderful. Again, I'd like, maybe we could even do some kind of thing where we recognize them in some way at a district level. And I'm not quite sure how we do that, but maybe we can. And finally, again, you mentioned the placement. We're talking about the placement. I'd like to see, again, how are those placements differing from year to year, and that have we seen that consistency when it comes to growth. And I loved what my fellow board members said about having parents involved, because the A through G, especially if we're having students that are struggling and that are not doing well in the classes, what better way to get them also incentivized than getting their parents involved as well. But thank you so much. Great report.
Borgen, did you have any comments or questions?
No, just thank you for your presentation.
Thank you. I do have one question. In the intervention driver for the bilingual paraeducator for EL and S students with disabilities, so you have one per high school? And is there a newcomer class in every high school?
Yeah, I mean, each high school does have depending on their enrollment and their population, usually the ones and twos are grouped into a newcomer program, which is part of revamping as well, in terms of, I know talking with Dr. Randolph, in terms of what they'd like that to look like, because it varies from site. They want to have something that's a little more consistent. Some of the schools do pay for a bilingual paraeducator, which their heavy focus is on the ones and twos. So where this one necessarily would really probably be on the higher end, where kids that have that opportunity to become A through G.
Okay. And what type of training will they get?
Part of it is just, for one, having a full understanding of what A through G is, and understanding what it's required, understanding the courses. Those paraeducators really establish a great relationship with those kids, and there's times kids may not want to be in a class, and we need that person reinforcing and supporting that, no, you can do this. We want you to reach this milestone. We want you to be successful in it. So they really need to have an understanding of why that's important and what those courses are, so that they can reinforce what the counselor's doing and teachers are doing.
They'll get that type of training, and also dealing with students with disabilities and the different methods. Okay. Thank you for the report.
You bet.
Thank you. No further questions, Superintendent Bailey?
Thank you, Dr. Wood, Mrs. Wood. Appreciate the presentation. I realize how much work goes into the behind-the-scenes aspect before you bring it to the stage, so thanks once again.
13.2, the second interim financial report.
That would be our Business Services Assistant Superintendent leading this presentation, Mr. Jordan Aquino.
Good evening, Board, Superintendent Bailey, members of the Cabinet. As you know, at this time during every year, we do our second interim budget report. Basically, it's a reflection of all expenditures to the end of January 31st and our projections for the remainder of the year. We update our adopted budget twice a year. So the first interim, which is in December, you're getting the second update of that budget or official comprehensive adjustment, and that happens in March. Let's go to the next one. So today we're going to go over a couple things. We're going to talk about fundamentals, attendance and enrollment. You're going to always hear me when I come up here talk about attendance and enrollment because in a typical year, now we received a lot of one-time funds this year, but in a typical year, LCFF, which is our primary revenue source, is 74% of our general fund. And that is driven by attendance and our enrollment. So we'll dive into the local control funding formula a little bit. We'll talk about the general fund and all the other funds and kind of what's to come. What should we be anticipating moving forward? So here's a simplified LCFF funding example. Now we get funded based on grade spans. Here's an example of an 8th grade student. Now if you take that 8th grade student, the state funds us based on 3 different categories under the local control funding formula. The base funding, which every student gets, supplemental funding, which is additional funding based on the demographics, our student needs, and concentration. Now to get into more specifics, for the supplemental piece, we get 20% of the base funding times our unduplicated pupil count. So there's a little bit that goes into those numbers, but those numbers will be unique depending on the district that you're at. Everyone will get 8,458 for an 8th grade student, but if you're a neighboring district like either Coachella or Palm Springs, which I believe they're plus 90 to 91%, they will get a higher supplemental and concentration dollar than Desert Sands does at 74 typically, but we're now at 80%. So if you add all those numbers together, you get 10,884 that we get per student. Now, in a typical year, if a student misses 9 school days, and that is our ADA average, so if you take 9 school days off of 180 a student year, you get around 94.9%. That's the historical average of attendance. So that number drops. So we don't get the 10,884, we get 10,329. That's based on an attendance rate of 94.9%. What we are seeing this year is that our attendance is trending to a 90.9%. So that's on average 17 days per school year district-wide. So that dollar amount is even further reduced at $9,850. Let me go back up real quick. Now, just to further elaborate on that, that difference from our historical average at 94.9 to 90.9, that dollar difference that you see there with the red and the black and the cross out, that's $479 per student. We have about 3,800 7th and 8th graders, that's the grade span. So that's an approximate $1.8 million difference that we would normally receive in a I guess, typical pre-COVID year. Here is a even more detailed by grade span. So you could see, I was talking about the grades 7 through 8, they had 8,458. You could see all the corresponding dollars, the supplemental dollars that we get per grade span. We get more for TK through 3 and 9 through 12, they have greater needs on those grade levels. With the supplemental and concentration dollars, and you can see the total dollar amount to the far right. That is if a student were to attend 100% of the time. So do we get that for some students? Yes, we do, and for some students we don't, depending on attendance. Again, just to go back, on the TK through 3, now at a 90.4%, that amount is $10,453. So if you take the typical at 94.9 and break it down to what it would be at 90.4, that is a difference of $12 million. The reason why I'm bringing this up is because typically we talk about enrollment being an issue. Enrollment is going down because of birth rates, those kinds of things. But now we're talking about two separate things because we're not hitting our historical average at 94.9%. Now, moving beyond the pandemic, we're not sure how this is going to play out because we have no data on what the behaviors are going to be like moving forward. Before it would be, whether it's work or at school, you're sick, you came to school, you came to work, good for you, you work hard. We've been treating that differently due to the circumstances under COVID. California has been declining in births since 2015. Now, we grew in the early 2000s. During the recession, there was a decline. We were stagnant from 2010 moving forward. And then from 2015 in California, we have been declining. Desert Sands is not immune to that decline either. We have our smaller incoming elementary schools, elementary grade levels that have been a lot smaller than our outgoing high schoolers. And not only that, our birth rates have dropped within our boundaries. So you've seen in the last presentation, I showed kind of the births. We've been having a lot less births in the area. As an example, in 2015, we had 3,009 births. In 2020, there were 2,507 births. Why is that important? Because those students end up matriculating into our student enrollment 4 years now with the TK, universal TK, but 4 to 5 years. Here is a chart that I pulled from the Legislative Analyst's Office for California. Birth rates on the left, our birth rates on the right based on our zip codes. So that's the Desert Sands data, and you can see they have that similar trend. In California, you can see the enrollment. Now, California typically sees a declining average of 22,000 students since 2015. Last year was an anomaly. So just to put things in perspective, California on a typical has been 22,000 students per year. They've lost 160,000, we have lost 160,000 students statewide. Excuse me. And here is the district's enrollment. Again, live births playing a significant role on that. And you can see the trend is very similar. Excuse me. Now, the California enrollment statewide, they're dealing with the same things we are. Pushing out of the higher grade levels, and the incoming TK is a lot smaller, TKK. Desert Sands, also very similar. The outgoing, as an example, that difference that I have listed there, you see the 2,341 12th graders versus the TKK. That is a difference of 438 students. Now, when we do enrollment projections, we don't do a simple like, okay, well, 1,903 come in the following year. There's a lot of things that are considered survival cohort. We do flat promote, we take a look at that. So there's a lot of factors that go into an enrollment projection, but just for purposes of just trying to communicate this difference, it's a 438 student difference. Now, if I times that by the average funding that we get for TK and the 12th graders, it's about $12,200 per student, and that funding difference is a $5.3 million difference. So, again, we were talking about the local control funding formula. when we forecast the local control funding formula, there's a couple variables that we have to assume in the budget to assume how much money we are going to receive from the state. We take into consideration what our enrollment is, what our attendance is, what our unduplicated pupil count is. So basically our free and reduced lunch population, English learners, those are the homeless students under our unduplicated pupil count. Our enrollment for the budget that I'm going to show you has no enrollment change in the out years. So that's important to know that. On the attendance, we had this year, we're projecting a 90.9% attendance. We're showing about a 0.54% increase moving forward. Again, we don't have data to assume that we're going to magically go up to our 94.9%, so we have to be somewhat careful about how we project that. Our unduplicated pupil count, we had great returns this year based on integrating under the enrollment platform student, I'm forgetting the term, the income verification forms. That was embedded in the enrollment process. You know, now the feds are going to move to a different, so all those schools that we had to collect free and reduced lunch applications, that may play a pretty big role in us getting to that 80% number that we hit this year. You know, it's not every day that everybody wants to fill out those forms. They're very complicated. So that can drive the funding as well. So for purposes of budgeting, we returned that unduplicated pupil count percentage back to our original previous year average at 73.9%. The state variable also puts into play has an impact on our local control projection. Our COLA next year, or the COLA being projected, is 5.33%. We use School Services of California's projection for the out years, the subsequent years, at 3.61 and 3.64%. When you put all those together, this is our funding projection under the local control funding formula. For 2018, 19, 2020, those numbers, those are historical numbers. We know that that's what we're getting. For 2021 and 22, we also know those numbers because they're based on, we had a 1-year reprieve or 2-year reprieve. We typically get a 1-year reprieve, but the state allowed us a 2-year reprieve due to dealing with COVID. So that funding for 21, 22 is 290. Now we're showing a drop in our LCFF funding. People are referring to that as a fiscal cliff, the ADA cliff. We'll go into that in a little more detail. So why is our LCFF projected to decrease? Again, as I was mentioning, the attendance fiscal cliff. In 1920, our attendance was 24,459. In 2021-22, we're looking at a total cumulative number of 22,411. That is a difference of 2,048.88. You'd say, how did you even get to that large of a number? Because not only are we dealing with a decline in our student population, we also experienced this year a shift in the attendance, how frequent kids are coming. Our historical average has been 9 days. We are now at 17 days, district-wide average. The impact to that, now we get a COLA, great. Inflation is high. The COLA is a reflection of that, so it's always working kind of behind the scenes. The next year's COLA is going to be a 5.33%, or approximately a $15.5 million increase. Our attendance percentage drop this year of 94.9 to 90.4, that's a $12 million hit to us that we normally wouldn't experience under normal circumstances, plus the enrollment impact. We've lost a lot of students, and we've continued to lose students due to the birth rates and other factors that we just can't control at $13 million. With all that being said, here's our general fund budget. Now, it's hard to really parse or to really dissect a budget without knowing all those details, because there's so much that goes behind these figures here that are just summarized on this one page. But you could see on the very top, the local control funding formula, the primary source of funding that we have that drives basically our district budget. And those numbers are on the top, and I think we showed that on the previous slide, that diagram. Here's our corresponding expenses. Now, when you summarize that on the general fund, both the unrestricted and restricted side, so it's a combination of both programs that have a targeted purpose and then programs that have more of a discretion to the nature. You could see that combined, we have a net surplus. The important piece to know is to always, or the important thing to always look at is our unrestricted general fund. That is the operating health of the district. And the reason why I say it's important to look at the unrestricted general fund is because all those one-time dollars that we received from the federal government, those are restricted dollars. They will expire. They have corresponding different expiration dates. I believe the last one is September 2024. Those are not part of the general fund combined. The unrestricted general fund doesn't house all those expenses. So that's why I'm showing it to you here. Now, is it bad that we're deficit spending? I've said it before. I'm going to say it again. Yes and no, because you have to really dive into the numbers to understand what's really going on here. With all the one-time funds that we've received, we've done a lot of things with them, and you could see all of them here. I don't need to read them out loud, but we've done a lot with staffing. Again, we're a service industry. And we've done a lot of additional things like like purchase buses. We wouldn't have ever had that opportunity with these one-time relief funds. So those additional buses will basically cover every bus that we have in the district, and every bus will have air conditioning. So we won't have those issues moving forward. Now, receiving the buses is an issue because we're still waiting on them. Since January, we were supposed to get them, so we're still waiting on a lot of those vehicles. So I'll go into a little bit, just in summary, all the other funds. We have our Fund 9, which is our Washington Charter, Palm Desert Charter Middle School Fund. You can see the beginning fund balance and ending fund balance projection. Our Adult Education Fund, Child Development Fund, our Child Nutrition Program, Self-Insurance Fund. So we have a small reserve in Fund 17 for post-employment benefits. So as employees retire, if they hit those milestones, that's afforded to them in their collective bargaining agreement. We have a reserve for that in the event that we need to dip into that. Self-insurance fund, which is a workers' compensation. We're self-insured, so we have to maintain a balance in order to afford claims and things like that, and our health benefit, retiree health benefits. We are spending down Measure KK. We have a lot of projects going on. The next ones are going to be Carter and Truman are two of the major ones. Right now we have Madison, Lincoln, and Ford are currently are currently being worked on and hopefully going to be complete by the end of the year. And then developer fees. And just to mention on the developer fees, we have a balance there. I submitted in a Friday letter what we plan to do with that balance, and we are looking at expanding one of our elementary schools to accommodate growth. You'll hear more about that when we have our facilities needs analysis this coming May. Capital Outlay Fund, which is we receive funds from the state for state matching. As you know, when Patrick comes up here and we start talking about the facilities master plan, we affect schools that ultimately the state will provide a match for us. We try to maximize our bonds that we issue. And the way to do that, the kind of magic number is if the school hasn't been touched or it's been 25 years or older, those are the schools that we're impacting because the state will provide us a match for that. Versus going into a school that may be 20 years old, spend $10 million on it, and the state won't give us any funds for that because it doesn't meet that 25-year threshold. and then our CFD fund. So just to kind of close up, so we have some budget relief and some budget pressures. The governor is proposing that we have, instead of us doing the 1-year reprieve on the ADA, that we average the previous 3 years. So I just did a quick calculation on what that would look like to us. So instead of losing 2,048 ADA in the following year, averaging the 3 previous years would be still a loss, but it wouldn't be as dramatic. It would be 1,379. So our projections would improve by $8 million next year. So that's if the governor's proposal passes. We didn't put it in the budget because it hasn't passed. Enrollment and attendance we just discussed. And then inflation. Just to give an example, I don't see Dan in here, but Dan has received a bunch of letters because we're trying to forecast for next year. And we see applesauce is going to go up 10 to 12%. We're getting notifications from the vendors. Juice products could be anywhere from 9% to 22%, so they're letting us know in advance. And snacks, crackers, a 50 to 68% increase. So with all the things that are going on in the economy, I don't need to go over, we all know what's going on. There is a major concern potentially of what inflation may put as far as an added pressure on the budget. And the typical things that we just have to assume, pension obligations that we've been dealing with for quite a while now. Next year, we're going to get an additional 2% increase to STRS, an additional 3% increase to PERS, and that combined difference is $3 million. And then step and column, which our salary schedules have inherent creases into them depending on where you're at on the step or column, and that is estimated to be a $3.7 million increase next year. So, we're doing our best, we're managing our budget, we'll provide you with any information that you need, or but things, as long as we're watching it, we know what's happening, it's just important that we get ahead of the curve. And that's it. Any questions?
Okay. Ms. Bergen, do you have any questions or comments? Mr. Alvarez?
No comments, thank you.
Ms. Pierce?
Thank you for explaining everything clearly. I tried to follow along as well as I could. I do hope, too, that the governor does give us that little bit of reprieve to help with the attendance calculations. But thank you for your report.
You're welcome.
Porras?
I don't have any questions. Thanks, Jordan. It was a great report.
Ms. Jonathan?
I always love your reports. Great job. No, I really do, because it's giving us valuable information. I'm concerned about the attendance. Students not attending school are students that aren't learning, and we need them at school. So not only are we being hit financially, but more importantly, we have students that are not getting educated because they're not here. And you can't learn if you're not here. So I know that in the past we've done some recovery of those minutes with Saturday school and others. Are we still consistently doing those as well?
If we will restart the Saturday school. We were not doing it previously. In the past, we've contracted with an agency that helped the attendance and all the issues that went with it. So we are looking at restarting that Saturday school. It was a good recovery for attendance.
And I think that not only should it be, recovery for the attendance, but I'm sure that those students are also the ones that are falling behind and they need the help, and maybe we need to be having interventions during
Right, and that's
Saturdays.
exactly what we do. And the schools have really been so creative and utilizing programs to not only recover attendance, but other students can also attend, even if they didn't, it doesn't have an absence. But it's an intervention program plus recovery attendance.
Perfect. And I do think that we need to, one, keep on recognizing we've got a bunch of money that we got handed on our plate for one-time funding, and I know some of the things that we're implementing may be something that are ongoing funding, and you don't plan for, as a person, a resident, a taxpayer, if I know I'm getting $200,000, but I have for one-time funds, and I have ongoing expenses that are right now only, let's say, 10,000. I bump it up to 190,000 because I think this is great. Well, guess what? Eventually, you're going to have to pay the piper. He's going to come and say, you don't have the money anymore to be playing with those funds. You need to really watch yourself. And I'm very concerned about that. I'm concerned about the deficit spending, the pension obligation. We've been talking about that in the 10 years I've been on this board. I'm really concerned about that. And you've done a great job, don't get me wrong. I'm just sharing with you some of my biggest concerns. And as much as we say we'd like the governor to give us this reprieve, I think it also is kind of scary if he gives us this reprieve, because we have to be beholden to what we have. And we need to understand that we have a finite amount of funds. And he might pretend and let us balance it for 3 years. But eventually they're going to make that adjustment, and we don't want to be caught with no funds to be able to balance it and then end up getting a negative certification. So I think that we as a board need to be very fiscally responsible, especially with inflation right now. I know I just got gas today, and it was really scary how much I paid for gas, and I'm sure everybody else is feeling that along with all the other things that are coming up. So I think that we need to be really, really, really conservative when it comes to our spending for the next few years, because I think that it could really hurt us in the long run if we're not. So, but thank you very much for your presentation.
No, thank you. I just was going to ask you about the attendance. I do want to mention that thank you for keeping us balanced. I know as evidenced by our credit report, we don't want to be out there bouncing on our, on our, on everything we have to pay for. So thank you for keeping us on the straight and narrow. Before COVID hit, we had a program in place where we hired some attendance monitors. I'm not sure what they were called. Do we still have that program in place, or was that just piloted for a short time?
We had attendance facilitators. Right, and they were certificated facilitators that worked with school sites to look at attendance and the chronic absenteeism. And they would help schools not only identify students on the chronic absenteeism issue, and then just attendance in general, and would work through Kathy Wirtz, through our CWA office. And then what year was that, Jordan?
It was 2018.
18? Yeah, those were cut, and we replaced with classified staff that have been, that work with the sites, in regards to, trying to follow up with attendance, and then school sites were then left with some of the work that the certificated attendance facilitators did do. As Jordan was talking about, during COVID, it took on a whole new spin because students were out, and part of it, just like he said, it used to be we would charge on whether you were a staff member or a student. If you had a little sniffle or whatever, you came to work, came to school. So that is an impact, but we're also looking through CWA what we can do in regards to post-COVID to start looking at how we will address attendance issues. I know school sites themselves, administration going out to homes, looking for students, not only ensure that they're at school, but that they're safe and secure. So we are continuing to look at different programs, but in the past we had the attendance facilitators.
Just to add, that was in 2018-19.
Right.
Because at that time, the governor was proposing, I believe it was a 10% reduction in funding with the 7.92 negative COLA. So the following year, that's when it was implemented.
Right.
Still focusing on that, and also we don't have any news yet on the proposed legislation of changing ADA to enrollment versus people in the seats yet.
No, so there's a lot of talk about that. I was in a meeting last week with Jessica Holmes from the State Board of Education and Mike Fine from FICMAT, and it's a lot more complex than just the concept of it. So there's a lot of ideas being thrown out there that I think are all being considered.
Ms. Conover, I did want to add and Ms. Jonathan was talking about the one-time funds. Part of the plan was to employ social workers and social worker interns. And we still have those lines in our plan to do, and the funds available, we just can't find them. You know, the staffing issues, because part of the work with social workers, they are able to not only do what you think of social workers being able to do out with families and schools, but also be able to do some therapy under the same as like a licensed MFT to a point. But we were really going to utilize them as working on attendance, going out and addressing families and situations that would ensure and assist students coming to school. We just haven't been able to find the people.
No more questions. Superintendent Bailey?
Mr. Aquino, thank you very much. If you don't mind staying there for a moment. I just want to thank you for the effort and energy behind this. I will put you on the spot. 18.1, I believe, is the item where the board will take action to approve the positive certification. In simplest terms, can you explain to everyone what it takes to provide a positive certification at the county level?
Yes, so basically you have to show that you have a balanced budget in the current and 2 subsequent years. So that became a requirement back in, I believe, 1990 with the pass of AB 1200. So basically with a balanced budget, you will certify a positive. Now, if you are concerned that you might not meet certain projections in the out year, that then would potentially, we could self-certify a qualified budget, or the county would review our budget and place our budget on a qualified status. So that would be a iffy budget. Then there's a negative certification where you can't meet your financial obligations within the current or 2 subsequent years. And if you get to a point where you're negatively certified, the county will provide some intervention. And then at that point, if things aren't working, they will appoint a state advisor. And the state advisor, once the state advisor is appointed, removes the authority of the board, and the state advisor can make the recommendations on budget basically by waving a magic wand. So it removes the voice of the public and puts the power in a state appointee.
Thank you. Well said. And with that, I'm glad that we have brought forward through the efforts of your leadership and staff a very positive certified budget. Thank you.
Thank you for making sure financial responsibilities are met. You and your staff are doing an amazing job. And we are moving on to public hearings. Item 14, there are none. Item 15, discussion, the COVID-19 response update. Superintendent Bailey.
Thank you. Well, obviously the biggest news this week is, and thanks to the board for making a critical decision during a special meeting to adopt the most recent CDPH public health guidelines regarding masking. So as you know, Monday, masking became strongly recommended versus mask required. And I just want to say thank you to the students and staff for respecting each other's personal decisions. I had a chance to go visit a site today with Dr. Vollmer, and I saw it in action. It was a wonderful thing. So appreciate the respect for the choice. It's a personal choice. And from what I can see, it was a very smooth transition. So thank you. All right. With that said, I'm going to reach down to the end here with Mrs. Fisher. Any comments?
Yes, thank you, Superintendent Bailey. Just a short highlight on the updated COVID safety plan due to the change in the mask mandate, as Mr. Bailey was discussing. First off, our district dashboard continues to reflect the similar decrease in county and state and across the country case rates. Right now, we're usually between 10 and 15 total cases compared to where we were a few months ago, which was in the thousands. So it's good to see that. Our district COVID safety plan has been updated per the recent changes in the mask mandate and quarantine protocols. It is now posted on the district website. Of course, the mitigation strategies such as cleaning, increased ventilation and filtration, self-screening of symptoms, testing and vaccine clinics, and our social emotional wellness remain in place and continue as top priority for the district. Just a few highlights of the updates include, again, the mask mandate requiring masks in all K-12 indoor settings is changed to strongly recommended, where it is a personal choice. Another highlight, once cleared through personnel, volunteers will be allowed to return to school sites. Please remember, due to the existing backlog of previously submitted applications along with anticipated demand in new applications, there may be a slight delay in the voluntary clearance process. Also, volunteers fall under the provision of the August 12, 2021 CDPH order requiring vaccine verification and weekly testing of non-fully vaccinated school workers. Updated quarantine guidance highlights for students. It has changed a bit. If students have been exposed in school per CDPH guidelines, should get tested within 3 to 5 days unless they've had COVID in the last 90 days. But exposed students may continue to take part in all aspects of schooling, including sports and extracurricular activities, unless they develop symptoms, of course, or test positive for COVID, and then they would need to follow those isolation guidelines. The updated quarantine guidance highlights for staff are aligned with Cal OSHA. So if there are unvaccinated with booster eligible without the booster, the employees must be excluded from the workplace for 5 days from the contact and then test on day 5 with the quarantine ended with a negative test. And then after that, they must wear a face covering for 10 days from exposure in an indoor setting. If the staff is fully vaccinated and boosted, they do not need to quarantine. They can continue to work, test on day 5, and wear a face covering for the 10 days from the exposure in an indoor setting. The symptom decision tree and the mask exemption forms were removed. The staff in the health and isolation areas will continue, obviously, to review symptoms and with parent permission, provide a rapid antigen test if needed. All information will be shared with the parent and determined whether the student can return to class, return after resolution of symptoms, or isolation if found positive. And of course, the mask exemption forms are no longer needed at this time, and that appendix has been removed. And of course, as we know, the district is subject to prevailing public health guidelines and orders at any given time. Thank you.
Dr. Hyde, any comment?
No comment.
Mr. Aquino?
None.
And nothing from Dr. Vollmer. Okay, back to you. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Moving on to item 16, public comment on open session items. I have no online comments, and we have 2, the blue ones. Communications from the floor. In accordance with bylaws of the board 9323, time is reserved for oral communications by members of the Board of Education or by citizens present. Citizens wishing to be heard on agenda items shall have a 3-minute limit and should indicate their intention at this time. In accordance with the law, decisions of the board cannot be made on any matter not previously published before the board meeting as indicated in bylaws of the board 9323.2. First person is Reno Barella.
Hello, board. Thank goodness for Ukraine and Russia. I guess that's why the mask mandates have been lifted, probably. Anyways, I asked myself, Reno, parents and grandparents, how will evil know his work is done? It's when the parents lose their say in protection of our kids. The politicians, the teachers union, and yes, the school board too, with the mask and social distancing for the last 2 years, it totally, from what I see and hear, has amputated the hopes and dreams of both the students and the parents. It's simply by just following orders. The psychological harm brought on by the politicians, the teachers union, and the school board, I see are irreversible. And that's just based on the door knocking we've been doing to get the petition, to get our petition signed. 95% of the parents were agreeing. It was interesting when you're the boots on the ground. Those charts and graphs that were by George Kim, I mean, he did a remarkable job, I must admit. But, you know, blaming it totally on kids dropping out because of going homeschooling, private schooling, you're probably ignoring the gravest reality statistic. A lot of kids just couldn't take it anymore. Between the bullying, rapes, runaways, suicides, overdose, child abduction, all those have increased in the last 2 years. In 2021, reported by Operation Underground Railroad, they had an increase of 1 million missing child calls. 1 million. Fortunately, most of the kids were found, but it was 1 million. So basically, the pedos have had a field day for the last 2 years. It's kind of ironic that we did lift the mask mandates out here, at Desert Sands, but Coachella Valley Unified School District hasn't. Yet they are actually one of the highest areas for child trafficking. While you guys all kept your jobs and got your raises, promotions, retirement benefits, it's been shown that California teachers have the second highest pay in the United States. Yet why is California academics ranked 37 and school safety is ranked 32? So having your job all these past 2 years, it seems you should be leaving it in a better place than in a worse place than where you found it. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Kenny Snell. Kenny Snell.
Good evening. I just stopped by today to give you a recall update. We have a special election petition going on because you decided to appoint someone instead of have an election. We needed 366 signatures. We turned in 481 signatures with very little effort. These were turned into the Riverside County Office of Education today. They will do their thing with it, although they're not sure what it is. And then that'll go to the Register of Voters. Well, they will verify the signatures and the registration status of those voters. If successful, this will remove the board member you appointed, and it will force a special election, which will cost $75,000. Sounds like a lot, but how much did you spend on cloth masks? How many of those cloth masks are still sitting in mothballs in closets at various schools? How much money did you spend on worthless plastic shields that were sitting on desks for about a week? I have a feeling 75,000 plus. So the right thing to do is hold an election. This is a representative democracy. And a representative democracy is not 4 people deciding the decision for 25,000 voters, which is what you did, especially when those 4 people have a history of weak leadership and bad decision making. I've been all over this district. I've talked to hundreds of your constituents. Easily, 2/3 of them are not happy with you. Don't judge by the attendance at this place, because the crime family known as the Biden administration has suppressed the people coming out, because now they're going to be labeled as domestic terrorists. They're not here, but they're watching, and they know what's going on, and they are not happy with you. You might want to go out and take some knocks on doors and just do that yourself. But that's all I have for you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next is Celeste Feeler.
Good evening. I wasn't going to speak tonight, and I actually got in my car and I was leaving. And then I thought to myself that after listening to the stats of enrollment and the low birth rates in California and all of that, and I just thought to myself, are you crazy for believing that? I mean, in 2020, you closed our schools, you shut our voices as parents, you masked our kids, you silenced us from putting our children first. You don't give us a voice as parents. Right here it says our mission, our values, the Desert Sands Unified School District values is relationships, respect, innovation, kindness, service, teamwork, excellence, inclusion, equity. Our mission to inspire and nurture every student. Wendy Jonathan, you did not stick up for Chase this entire time. He is special needs. Not once did you stand up for him. So I don't believe that from you. Monday was his first day back to school. You should have stood up for him because he was being bullied by adults. He went without an education, an in-person education, was isolated. I had him at my house almost daily, and I loved every second of it. My girls helped him stay focused. He didn't even get anything sent home from him from his teachers. So the nurturing of every student is absolutely false. Not only that, parents are not coming back to this district. That's the sad part, because this is a good district, but they're not coming back. They're not coming back to a district that continues to be chained to the governor and to the teachers union. When you spend $5.5 million on CRT and you don't even think that, parents are against that, you're teaching these children to hate each other because of the skin color. These kids can't even read, and high schoolers can't even do basic math. Why on earth would they come to a school district that is chained to a teachers union that's woke? We're done with that. So I think that parents are starting to wake up, community members are starting to wake up. As I walked this whole time to collect signatures for these recalls, so many people are getting engaged and thinking we have to get more people on our school board that put the students first. This was an eye-opener in 2020, and I hope that it's going to take the new board members that replace you guys that will get students back here to this district, but it's not going to be you guys. Thank you.
Thank you. And moving on to board and superintendent comments. Ms. Morgan, do you have any comments?
Comments?
Thank you. Mr. Alvarez.
Yeah, just something real quickly. I just want to say congratulations to Guy Lake for being the band director of the month. Katie Zinn for doing the National Poetry Month. Of course, Randolph Hutz for the certificate of, I'm sorry, not Randolph. Kristen Wood, I'm sorry, for the certificate of excellence. Indio, La Quinta, and Palm Desert High School for their mock trials. Mr. Samuel Vincent and Mr. William Rams on their, I didn't quite get it, but they were getting recognized for their excellence. Let's see, Dan Capello, of course, obviously for nutritional services. That was actually a huge lift that he had to do along with his team, basically out of nowhere. So that was nice to see. And then let's see if there's anything else that I have here. Nope, that'll do it. That's the end of my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Pierce.
He listed everything, but I do want to congratulate all the different entities that were recognized. And I did have a question for Ms. Fisher. Are the companies that we contracted for this to still have the rapid antigen testing or the PCR, or maybe we're only doing rapid, I don't know. And does each school site still have an isolation room set up and monitored, or is that kind of been able to go, I don't know?
No, we have, through the testing grant that we received through Riverside County Public Health, that will take us through the year, so we have that maximum staff. The isolation rooms will continue to be at the school sites through this school year. The testing and vaccine clinics, we are partnering primarily with Desert Healthcare Foundation, and those will also, testing continues every day from 3:30 to 5:30. And then the vaccine clinics, we're working on a schedule from, our next one is March 16th, and working on the schedule through the end of June. So those will stay in place through the school year.
Okay, good, because I had a comment from somebody that asked me, oh, there's no more isolation rooms, they go right to the nurse, and I thought, I think they're still
Now, the
sending
isolation rooms, the maximum health staff can range anywhere from a health tech to an LVN. And no, we haven't changed that. We won't change that.
But
for
it
the
is
rest
still
of
in
the
a
school year.
separate area, not
Yes.
in the main office with the nurse and everything, yeah.
Yes.
Okay, well, great. Thank you for clarifying. No further comment.
Porras?
I just want to welcome Kylie to our board. So great to see you here. And I think it's awesome that you're an entrepreneur and doing your own thing. So that's really great that you're doing that at such a young age. I wish you much success with that. And I just have to say, Dan Capello, once again, congratulations to Dan. That was so great for everybody to be there. We surprised him, and so I don't know. I wonder if we really surprised him, because anyway, but it was really great for everybody, all staff and everybody to be there. And he humbly accepted the award and just always puts his staff first. And it was just well deserved. And I just really am so excited for him. And that is all my comments for today. Thanks.
Jonathan?
Congratulations for joining our board, and Kylie. And I got to be honest with you, like, your mom is the very best PE teacher on this planet. And I know because I worked with her, and she's amazing. And your dad is like one of the best, I have to say one of the best, I'm sorry, one of the best principals on this planet. I mean, your family was really an amazing family. I've had the privilege of getting to know your mom and your dad, and I think you're really blessed, and it looks like you're doing a great job. And who knows, with your entrepreneurship, that's how Brandini Toffee got started. So you never know. We may be looking at somebody who's going to be famous someday. So, but I'm so glad you're here with us, and you have great parents and a great family. So congratulations. I did want to do a shout out, because if I didn't give a shout out to Guy Lake, he would probably be disappointed. I just think that that's so wonderful. He does so much for our musical program at Palm Desert High School, and it's so well deserved. And World Quest, Palm Desert High School continues to really step up to the plate and do such a great job with that program, and they're going on to Washington. Again, Katie, congratulations from Palm Desert High School. And Kristen Wood, you talked about, you got that GOBO Certificate of Excellence. I got to tell you, a lot has to do with what you do at the LCAP. And, I've had the privilege sitting on the LCAP committee for the past few years. And you're doing an amazing job, and everybody in your department, and obviously that kind of trickles down because you've got great people above you, but I know how hard you work in that, with that and engaging our stakeholders, and I really do appreciate it. And I wanted to also give a shout out to Wally Clark, because I think it's really wonderful how he's always continued to support our students with the mock trial, and he's really just a wonderful person and gives a lot back to the community, and I just wanted to give a shout out to Wally Clark. And of course, Dan Capello, what can I say? He's so well deserved. I can't believe what he was able to accomplish for these past couple of years, so kudos to him.
Thank you. Kylie, welcome to our dais here. It's an interesting perspective for you. So I'm glad you're here. I think everybody has called out all the congratulations, all the celebrations. We do have some talented people working at this district, and when I was watching the video of Dan talking about, working indoors and the air conditioning and refrigeration, and all of a sudden, out of just nowhere, out in the heat, they were there. They were the face of Desert Sands, the face that, the students saw all through that summer, that whole year, as they passed out, hundreds and thousands of meals. So well-deserved recognition for him and his staff. And I do want to thank everybody for their hard work. Everybody puts in 110%, so thank you. Superintendent Bailey?
I want to welcome Kylie again. You chose your parents well, by the way. Just a quick comment. I want to thank Principal Sperber from Page Middle School and Mrs. Miller, who invited us, Dr. Vollmer and Mr. Bailey, out to speak to the population today, the student population, for their career and college day. So, great experience.
Thank you. And moving on to item 18, General Functions Business Services. There are 3 items in General Functions Business Services. Is there a motion to take items 18.1 through 18.3 as a group or individually?
I move that we take 18.1 to 18.3 as a group. Linda Porras.
Is there a second?
Second, Tricia Pierce.
It has been moved and seconded to take General Functions Business Service item 18.1 through 18.3 as a group. Is there any discussion? Actually, I did have a question on 18.3. As we are withdrawing from one and going to the other, will there be any interruption and any benefits or?
So basically, if this gets approved by the board and ultimately by the REAP board, what would happen is we would get rid of the middleman. So we would still be dealing with MetLife, but not through a third party. It would be directly with MetLife.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments or discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Any abstention? Motion carries 5-0 with 1 preferential vote. Moving on to item 19, General Functions Educational Services. Is there a motion to approve to accept the grant award notification from the California Department of Education for the After School Education and Safety Program?
A motion to accept 19.1.
Is there a
Tricia
second?
Pierce.
It has been moved and seconded to approve to accept the grant award notification from California Department of Education. Is there any discussion? Go ahead.
I was just going to mention the ACES program. I've always wondered why it's not able to be at every school instead of or in conjunction with the YMCA, or is it just the limitations of the funding, or is it the demographics of the particular school?
So yes to both of those, but we are in the process of working on an expanded program that's coming to us that would allow us to put a program at each of our elementary and middle schools, and that's in the works right now.
That would be wonderful.
Yeah.
Because
And that should go into effect for the next school year.
Yeah.
And would also provide for some summer programs as well.
That would help parents greatly, because I know even on the sliding scale with the Y and other places, it's very cost prohibitive for some people.
Absolutely, yeah.
They also have great programs, like they have the golfing program through ACES, and it's interesting because all the other schools that don't have the program don't have that for their students. So I'm glad to see that it's going to be rolled out to the rest of the schools.
Any other comments or discussion? Hearing none, calls for the question. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. Any abstention? Motion carries 5-0 with 1 preferential vote. Item 20, General Functions Personnel Services, there are none. Item 21, General Functions Student Support Services. We have 1 item. Is there a motion to approve to amend the independent contractor agreement with Desert Occupational Therapy for Kids Incorporated?
So moved, Linda Porras.
Is there a second?
Second, Wendy Jonathan.
It has been moved and seconded to approve to amend the independent contractor agreement with Desert Occupational Therapy for Kids Incorporated. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, calls for the question. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries 5-0 with 1 preferential vote. Item 22, General Function Superintendent, none. Item 23, Consent Item Student Matters, Superintendent Bailey.
Yes, I have 1 item, reference to closed session agenda 3.1. Tonight in closed session, the board took action to approve a stipulated expulsion number 21/22-42. This was on a motion by Mrs. Jonathan, seconded by Mrs. Porras. The motion carried 5-0.
Thank you. Moving on to item 24, Consent Items Business Services. There are 13 items in Consent Items Business Services. Is there a motion to take Consent Items Business Services as a group or individually? Items 24.1 to 24.13.
I make a motion to take 24.1 to 24.13 with all the clubs and modernization change orders, lots of things. Yes, I make a motion for all of them. Tricia Pierce. It's a variety.
Is there a second?
And Linda Porras.
Okay, is there any discussion? It has been motioned and seconded that we take consent items 24.1 to 24.13 as a group. Is there any discussion?
Yes, Jacob Alvarez on 24.1. I just need a clarification on how that information gets distributed to staff at each of the schools. And what I did notice as a part of the exhibit showing the disaster or the school safety and building disaster plans is that it had Jackson Elementary twice. So it had Jackson Elementary, then Kennedy, and then Jackson Elementary again. So is it only for those schools or for all schools?
Listed twice.
Yeah, so as a part of the attachment, if you open it up, there's 3 schools in total. 2 of them it had as Jackson Elementary. The first one and the last one. The middle one was Kennedy.
Oh, that I would say that then the upload was a mistake because there should be 3 different schools with the CSP.
Okay, so the third school being which school then?
Addison. Thank you.
Okay, and then are all of these, in terms of these plans, are they all at different times that they get updated, or is it something that we try to do where all schools are updated at one time?
So basically all the schools through their council update the plan and they're supposed to be approved by the end of February, but these 3 schools were late submissions.
Okay, so we already approved the other ones, and then how do these get disseminated to staff, and how is it our understanding that staff has read through these? And the only reason why I ask this is because of a recent occurrence at Palm Desert Charter where seems to me that things kind of went haywire.
Yeah, speaking of the Palm Desert Charter, we did kind of the timing with the plan, and we had an after-action review with staff to review the whole dismissal. So Ed, I didn't know if you wanted to add to talk about just any of the process, but Mr. Nakua, who happens to be in the audience, is ultimately responsible for making sure that the plans from every school make their way on the agenda for approval. Oh yeah, just to add, the schools are the ones who submit the plans.
So I'm not sure where to start with this, but could you rephrase the question? I'll try my best to answer it.
Sure, so it's my understanding that the schools put these forward and it's basically coming to us for kind of final approval and if you will, forgetting the term right now, but anyways, as the schools are going through them, they have their groups, right, and they're coming together, and usually these are copy and paste from best practices from other school districts or however you do it or what's required by the state. That being said, how are we assured as board members or as concerned parents that these have been read through by the teachers in which are watching our students?
Okay, so you're correct. There's a template made that they get every year. So at the beginning of the year, the school site safety council is formed, and that school site safety council goes over the plan. Then the school administrator is to give that plan to like students and staff. But like to reinforce it, for example, we lay out drills. So as a district, we do over 500 drills. So to reinforce like what's in the plan, there's a plan like, let's say, for earthquake evacuation, shelter in place, lockdown and lockout. And then we set a standard for each grade level to help reinforce it. And district-wide, we'll do over 500 drills a year. And to help reinforce like those response protocols that are laid out in the plan, the age of the student is taken into account. So for example, at the elementary level, they'll do an evacuation, assembly area, like assemble the students and take roll, and that's done once a month, like 10 times a year. And so that's kind of how it works. The school site safety council goes over the plan. School administrator would give that information to the school staff, most likely through a staff meeting, and then the actions are drilled, like the response protocols, throughout the year.
Okay, that answers my question, and the word I was trying to find them for my own was basically it's for us for receive and file. Okay, thank you, sir.
All right, thank you, guys.
I know as a teacher, we actually went over that every year at the beginning at a staff meeting before it even went to site council. And we would redo whatever needed to be done. We would fix whatever problems we found along the way in our drills. And so it was constantly monitored and gone over. And the people that monitored the areas and everything was changed. And just all of that is really thorough with the staff, and each staff member is aware of all the parts of it. So that also helps.
Any other discussion or comments? Hearing none, calls for the question. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Any abstention? Motion carries 5-0 with one preferential vote. Moving on to item 25, consent items, educational services. There are 5 items. Is there a motion to take consent items, educational services 25.1 through 25.5 as a group or individually?
Jacob Alvarez moves them as a group.
Is there a second?
Second, Tricia Pierce.
It has been moved and seconded to take items 25.1 through 25.5 as a group. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, calls for the question. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Any abstentions? Motion carries 5-0 with one preferential vote. Item 26, consent item personnel services. There are none. Item 27, consent item student support services. There are 6 items in student support services. Is there a motion to take items 27.1 through 27.6 as a group or individually?
I move that we take 27.1 to 27.6 as a group. Linda Porras.
Is there a second? It has been moved and seconded to take consent items student support services 27.1 through 27.6 as a group. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, calls for the question. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. Any abstentions? Motion carries 5-0 with a preferential vote. And moving on to item 28, consent item superintendent. There are none. Yes. And item 29, personnel action certificated. Dr. Hyde, do you have any items?
I do. I'm pleased to announce that I'd like to recommend the appointment of Michelle Lowry Mendizabel to the position of program specialist.
Thank you. And as 29.1, certificated personnel, as this item deals with personnel, our student board member will not be voting. Is there a motion to approve item 29.1, certificated personnel?
Move Linda Porras.
Is there a second?
Second, Wendy Jonathan.
It has been moved and seconded to approve item 29.1, certificated personnel. Is there any discussion?
Yes, we have 2, 4, 6, 8 people that are retiring from certificated. Joseph Baytok from Palm Desert High School. He has 22 years of service, and his wife, Mary Baytok, who I taught with at Lincoln Elementary School, 22 years of service. Elaine Garcia from Educational Services has 25 years. Janet Gathram from Carter Elementary, she has 21 years of service. Who doesn't know Chris Geyer from Palm Desert Charter Middle School? He has, I don't know what he's going to do because he's always so energy. He has such high energy, and I don't know what he's going to do when he retires. I can't imagine him retiring, and he has 30 years of service. Robert Long from Horizons has 31 years of service. Congratulations on that. Dina Martin has, from special ed, years of service are 11, and our big number is Nora Maurer from Kennedy Elementary School, and she has a total of 33 years of service for a total of 195 years of service for those people retiring today. And I wish them luck, and I hope they enjoy their retirement.
How many years was that?
195.
I just want to say congratulations to making it to the finish line, as Gary Tomac used to always say. And Nora Mauer was my son's kindergarten teacher. And she was amazing. And that was when she first started teaching. So anyway, he's almost 40. So yeah, so anyway, congratulations, Nora. And she well-deserved retirement. I don't know, she's a high-energy person too, so I don't know what she's going to do with the retirement. But anyway, congratulations to everybody.
Any other comments? Hearing none, calls for the question. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstention? Motion carries 5-0. And item 30, personnel actions classified. Dr. Hyde, do you have any items?
No blind appointments.
So we're moving on to 30.1. As this item deals with personnel, our student board member will not be voting. Is there a motion to approve item 30.1, classified personnel?
So moved, Linda Porras.
Is there a second?
Second, Wendy Jonathan.
It has been moved and seconded to approve item 30.1, classified personnel. Is there any discussion?
Yes, we have one retirement, and it's Maria Becker, and she's from the Central Kitchen, nutritional services assistant, and she's retiring after 29 years of service, and she's one of those ones that was working with Mr. Campello that literally was working so much and doing so much for our community and our students. So thank you and congratulations. And exactly, good job.
Are there any other comments or discussion? Hearing none, calls for the question. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstention? Motion carries 5-0. And item 31, call out of closed session actions. Superintendent Bailey.
Yes, I have one item related to closed session 3.4. Tonight in closed session, the board took action to reject a claim number 21-L-004. This motion was made by Mrs. Porras, seconded by Mrs. Pierce, and the motion to reject the claim carried 5-0.
Thank you. Item 32, suggestions for future agendas that receive at least 3 votes. Kylie, do you have any suggestions for items to be put on the agenda? No, I don't. Thank you. Mr. Alvarez?
No, I do not.
Ms. Pierce?
None.
Ms. Porras?
None at this time.
Ms. Jonathan?
None.
Okay, I have none. Good. Item 33, announcements. The next regularly scheduled meeting of the Board of Education will be on Tuesday, April 12, 2022 at 7 p.m. at the District Education Center Boardroom at 47950 Dune Palms Road in La Quinta, California. We do not need to reconvene to closed session. This meeting is adjourned at 8:53 p.m.
Thank you to our deputies.
Thank you,
Thank you, everyone.
everybody. Have a good